So we started serving the poor of San Diego, which I could tell you stories for days about that. But ultimately, me and my buddy said, what if we helped companies do what we do with the church? Well, turns out there's a whole category in the marketplace called CSR, corporate social responsibility, where companies want to demonstrate to consumers and shareholders that they're taking the profits and making communities better. So we started a software company called Profits for Purpose, where we helped mobilize employees to donate time and money, and we would generate reports for shareholders and consumers.
Son of a preacher man to tech entrepreneur.
Yeah, my dad was a pastor, is still a pastor. Grew up traveling, New Orleans, St. Louis, Columbus, Denver, North Jersey, GoPro. This was when GoPro was at their height. And they said, we'll sign you, but you've got to deliver this in 90 days. I was like, it's not gonna happen. The guy looks at me and he goes, we're GoPro, we're an edge case. Do it in 90 days or we won't sign a deal with you. Building businesses, starting businesses like robbing banks. Every bank has a different exit path, and you've got to get out before you get caught, because every business gets caught.
So you're rocking and rolling. You built these 3 businesses, right? And then COVID hits.
I'm looking for a 24 post. 24 post basically means my revenue, your investment, my valuation. If we're $1 million and you give me 3 million, my company's worth 24 million. Stupid valuation.
Right.
He says, pardon some of the language, but he's like, he goes, who the fuck do you think you are? Just as like all the
Hey guys, welcome back to Vaulted Views. Of course, you know me. I'm your host, Ray Lucia Jr. And today, man, what a great lineup here in season 2. Another very special guest, Josh. How do you pronounce your last name? Hotzenpiller.
Nailed it.
I mean, I want to say Hotzenpiller.
Yeah, it's been many versions I've heard.
Hotzenpiller, Josh Hotsenpiller. We're going to talk about Josh, who went from son of a preacher man to tech entrepreneur. I mean, this is a story you guys got to wait till the end, because, man, we're going to hit you guys with some really cool stuff that you could take home to your own families, to your friends. Some really touching stuff, but also some great business advice as well. Right, Josh?
I think so.
Yeah, man.
Learned a thing or two along the way.
So, well, let's just dive right into this thing. Let's talk a little bit about your background. I mentioned you're son of a preacher man.
Yeah.
Not just like the song.
Right. It turns out
you actually are. Was this a song written about you?
One exists. Yeah.
No, this song probably written long before you were born.
Long before me, but the only one that could ever reach me. Right. Yeah, my dad was a pastor, is still a pastor. Grew up in traveling. He would stay everywhere 3 to 5 years. So New Orleans, St. Louis, Columbus, Denver, North Jersey. And then he actually followed me out to Southern California.
Okay. So role reversal.
Yeah. So I grew up.
So he bounced around a lot.
Yeah. Bounced around, grew up in the people business, man. I got to know people and the heart of people and all the fun stuff about it, which ultimately, kind of built my story around.
Awesome. Yeah. So you said you bounced around. How'd you end up in San Diego?
So like something we talked about, family business, right? And so
I know that well.
People
that follow this show know that well.
Yeah.
My first guest, by the way, was my father.
Well, see, there you go.
So everything's family.
Yeah. So guys like us, we saw our fathers have impact, change lives,
right?
And so that's a big deal. And so I think when you kind of, as an emerging son, what am I going to do with my life? Well, I watch my dad impact a lot of people's lives. I'll do the same thing. And so I went and got my divinity degree in Manhattan. And so I got that in business organization, leadership. And 23 years old, my dad said, come work for me. And I'm like, man, Dad, I think, and this was before entrepreneurship was a thing. Now every kid with
they actually
iPad,
teach entrepreneurship in universities now. So
this was not a thing,
right?
Almost 30 years ago. And I said, Dad, I appreciate the offer. I think I want to go start one of these things. Not just like work at one of
these things called a church.
A church. I want to start one of these things. So
hey, honey, you want to go to one of these things on Sunday?
Exactly. Yeah, I want to start one. I don't want to just work at one. And my dad was super cool, like your dad. I mean, just was supportive and said, like, let's get you in the business, if you will. And so I ended up. I'll never forget it. Actually, really cool story. My dad hosted the first fundraising night, and it is his house in Jersey.
So fundraise. So you had to fundraise.
Yeah, because you got to
start.
One of these. One of these. So it takes money, turns out. And
no kidding.
Yeah, you got to pay for rent and, musicians and chairs. And so my dad invited a lot of the guys from and folks from his church over. And I'll never forget it, actually. He took a check. This is a great story. He took a check out of his checkbook and folded it in half and threw it in the fundraising bucket.
Okay.
And they didn't put anything on it. He goes, "You got to seed the pod."
You got to seed the pod. It was a blank check.
Yeah. So raised 23 years old, raised $100,000 over a couple different giving nights. But
That's amazing though. 100 grand
at 23, and this was 25 years ago. And my wife and I got married. We went on a 1-week honeymoon, and we drove 3,000 miles from Manhattan out to San Diego and didn't know anybody. And we started a church in our apartment in UTC. And we just kind of had this idea that if we love people well and we teach them how to live a better life, their best version of their life,
right?
Then that's a good thing. And so we, now, like any son that grew up, look, we both saw our dads have a measure of success.
Right.
And so you kind of take it a little bit for granted because you just assume
you just think it just happens overnight, right?
Kind of the born on third a little bit, and so I figured this would be easy, and I got a bit of a personality.
So your first what do you call it?
Service.
Yeah. What'd you have? A couple hundred people show up?
Yeah, right. So we sent out 30,000 invitations.
Okay.
Bought a mailing address, put a and I was thinking, man, if we get 1%, get 300 people,
which is pretty typical.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
So we had met about, I don't know, maybe 20 people because we'd been there for 3 months before we did this. And one person showed up. One family showed up, and they didn't come back, by the way. And I remember that was my first lesson in entrepreneurship. My first real lesson.
What did that teach you?
I'll never forget, scared to death. I thought that was my only plan. My whole plan was I'll spend all the money. I'll buy chairs, sound equipment, rent a facility, buy a mailing list, print off 30,000 invitations, send them out. 300 people show up. 100 won't be able to stand me. 200 will like me. We'll start the church. Bada boom, bada bing. It's going to be that easy. One person showed up. They didn't. And so here's what I had to do. The next day, this is a true story. I went out and I got a bucket of water and a windshield cleaner wiper. And I went to the mall, UTC Mall, and I started washing the windows of cars and leaving notes on the front windshield that said, "Hey, I'm new to town. I'm a pastor. Your windshield is dirty. I thought I'd wash it for free. Would love to have you come to church sometime."
No kidding.
And I literally started washing windows in the UTC parking lot to just serve the community. And gradually one person would show up, and then another person would show up, and then I got a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And I launched my next marketing campaign, which was 2 initiatives. One was this was when Ron Burgundy came out. So I made 1,000 Ron Burgundy signs and said, "Stay classy, San Diego, come to Existence Church."
Okay. All right.
And then the second one was I bought like 4,000 suckers, and I printed out these cards that said, "Church doesn't have to suck." And I put a sucker on it, and I put them door to door. And you're
hustling, man.
Man, what else were you going to do? I mean, here I am. I'm married for 90 days.
Yep.
I got my money.
You got no choice.
I got no money. And I got to just figure out how to meet people. And one by one, they started showing up. And we ended up growing up to about 1,000 people by the time I transitioned. Yeah.
So you came here with knowing nobody and built up a church with 1,000 people following your message.
Yeah, following the message of the Bible. Yeah,
the Bible, of course, but you're delivering it.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's a wild ride, man.
When you take a step back, you don't think about church as a business, but you got to learn all those things: marketing and
P&Ls,
operations, and paying your bills.
I mean, it's hard too, right? Because it's like you're paying. In this context, we were paying rent. We had to buy sound equipment, children's equipment for the rooms. But through that process, Ray, like the business that you're in, I mean, you meet people and you fall in love with their story. They fall in love with yours. And, it's like the old, Forrest Gump, you put your back up against mine. I'll put mine up against yours. We won't get our head in the mud.
There you go.
It's the same business you do, man. You care about people, you love people, you fight for people, and together they do the same for you and good things happen.
Well, you did a great thing because, I mean, that's no shake. So what do they say? Stick to shake at.
Yeah,
right?
it was work, man. It was work.
1,000 people. So So you went from there, and then what? You decided to get into business?
Yeah. So again, following the family business, for me, I woke up at about 28. So I'd been doing it for 5 years, 6 years,
Okay.
maybe 29. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know that and you got to remember, I got married and started a church without a frontal lobe. I mean, I literally did not have, they say you don't get a frontal lobe like 26. So I'm making major life decisions without cause and effect function, without executive function.
You're killing me right now, bro.
It's just true. It's factually true. I had no executive function. It's like, you see your kids do stuff and you're like, why would you do that? They're literally doing these things because they don't have what's called executive function. That's your frontal lobe. It doesn't exist yet. So at about 29, I was like,
You were like, I got my frontal lobe, so now I can make decisions.
Now I can process kind of more,
Yeah.
And I go,
All right.
I don't know that this is what I would have done.
You
with
wanted something more for yourself.
different, maybe not
Different.
more, but different,
Okay.
and I was at the gym with a guy at our church who was a CFO of a big surgery center group. He was about my age. And he said to me, he goes, Josh, I don't think I could be a CFO the rest of my life. And I said, Jason, I don't think I can be a pastor the rest of my life only. And we had built this church, Ray, on this notion that we were in UTC. So all these young, educated, great jobs, kids were coming to my church. I had 1,000 20-year-olds that were working at CBRE, that were McKesson, that were entrepreneurs, that were developers out of UCSD. It was all these upper educated 20 and 30-year-olds coming to my church. And the way I grew it was I said, I want to just serve the poor. That's what I want to do. So we started serving the poor in San Diego, which I could tell you stories for days about that. But ultimately, me and my buddies said, what if we helped companies do what we do at the church? Well, turns out there's a whole category in the marketplace called CSR, corporate social responsibility,
Sure.
where companies want to demonstrate to consumers and shareholders that they're taking the profits and making communities better. So we started a software company called Profits for Purpose, where we helped mobilize employees to donate time and money, and we would generate reports for shareholders and consumers.
So that's interesting kind of segue from building a church, right, where you're mobilizing people,
Right.
to now you're mobilizing employees, and you're tying it into
Kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, kind of doing the same thing, but applying it to business. That's pretty smart.
But I started thinking about scale because I wanted to
Okay.
scale ideas. I wanted to go, what if you could actually scale things? So we jumped into this. We didn't know anything about technology. In fact, we offshored. This was back before offshoring was a thing. Now nearshoring is a thing, but offshoring was a thing. And we built our first software platform in Bangladesh.
Okay.
Neither one of us could write one line of code. So we didn't know if something didn't work. We didn't know why it didn't work.
I've heard of offshoring to India, Ukraine. I actually use, an outsourced offshore firm in Eastern Europe.
Yep.
Right. So, but Bangladesh.
So that's where I'd found a guy from our church who was building websites in Bangladesh. We took this company and it was great for a little while, but then we started landing some big clients. GoPro, Estee Lauder, Staples, the NFL. And they were like, where's your development team? And so we were like, we got to onshore this thing if we're going to work with Fortune 500 companies.
Right. Those are some big names.
Yeah. And those were some stories, man. We would walk into these boardrooms and probably the most iconic one was GoPro. This was when GoPro was at their height. They were all time. Their stock was all time.
Okay. And then there were young guys
From San Diego.
They're here in San Diego. Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And we went up to the Bay Area to pitch them on our deal. And they really liked our next generation platform. We showed them the wireframes and they were all excited. And they said, we'll sign you, but you've got to deliver this in 90 days. And I said, most software, certainly at that period, but even in today, it's the same way. You say yes.
Right.
You lie. And you just don't deliver it in 90 days. But they've already signed a contract. They're too deep in.
Yeah.
Now the relationship's broken, but you got a 2-year deal. No big deal. I was like, it's not going to happen. And the guy looks at me and he goes, we're GoPro. We're an edge case, which is
edge case.
It basically means we're not normal. We're on the edge. We're an edge case. So in business terms or in software terms, it basically means an edge case means you do whatever it takes. Like we are the outlier.
Okay. All
And
right.
so he looks at me and goes, we're an edge case. Do it in 90 days or we won't sign a deal with you. And I looked at him and I go, and my business partner, who would have loved to lie in a second, I said, hey, I thought you would probably say that before we came in here. And I thought to myself, I could lie to you. I'd get your name and my name on a piece of paper and we could be bound together and we could both look stupid in 90 days. Or I could be honest with you and maybe risk losing you. But we went to a bar before we got up here and already agreed we'd be willing to lose you before we'd be willing to lie to you. And the guy looked at me and goes, you're the only person that's ever been in here that didn't do that. Sign these guys. We'll wait.
Great.
And we signed GoPro at the all-time height of their business, which began to propel us to more deals. We ended up having 1 million global employees accessing the platform.
Hold on. Back up. 1 million?
Accessing it, that were using it.
Okay.
So
across all your clients.
Abbott Pharmaceuticals, right. All of Abbott's employees, all of Staples employees, all of Estee Lauder's employees, all of Hyatt's employees. And we sold it. The space was commoditizing and
again, the business was helping the employees.
They could log in to the intranet of their company.
Yep.
They click a button that looked like it was their company's intranet, but it was our platform.
Yep.
They would find,
so it was like white labeled for them. Yep.
They could find volunteer opportunities in San Diego or Reno or Sanford, Connecticut, doesn't matter where.
Yep.
They could sign up to volunteer. They could order their t-shirts. It would track all their hours. And then we would track all their hours of all their employees all around the world volunteering, what category they were in, how many hours they did, how many of their siblings and family members they brought in.
So cool.
Generate this report that they could go in front of their shareholders and consumers and say,
look at all the great work that our people are doing.
80,000 of our employees and 300,000 of their family members all volunteered this year because you shopped with Staples. And we would generate all that.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Pretty cool.
So you had 1 million people
Accessing
employees accessing that platform.
Yep.
That's changing lives.
Like changing communities, changing lives. It was an amazing experience. Somebody came in and decided that, and they were smart, they were business savvy, said the money is not in selling software. The money is taking a percentage of the donations. So they essentially became a financial transaction firm, a fintech company.
Okay.
They basically said, who cares about, they really didn't care about doing good. They came in and said, look, this is going to go one of two ways. We're going to go in and give away once your contract ends, we'll just give away for free.
Right.
And they won't be able to justify it, but we really love your clients and we'll buy it from you. And it was just, this is business.
Yeah.
Every business,
business models evolve.
There's we'll get to it later, but one of my mentors was a guy named Jerry Murdoch, who's the co-founder of Insight Partners, which is the largest software only VC in the world. And I raised 16 million from him, but he told me something about businesses. When I raised money from him, he said, who's going to buy you? I won't give you money until you tell me who's going to buy you, because we're going to sell this thing rather quickly. And he goes, building businesses is like robbing banks. Funny word.
We're in a vault.
Building businesses, starting businesses is like robbing banks. Every bank has a different exit path, and you've got to get out before you get caught, because every business gets caught.
Interesting. So
how are you going to get out of here before? Because either we're going to get caught or the next guy's going to get caught. Or the next guy, someone's getting caught in this business. We got to get out before we get caught. And it was like something that I always thought about, because business becomes so personal, and it's business. And in this context, we were going to get caught. We were going to get caught because somebody came in and said, the real money in this space is 5% of 1 million employees accessing this. And they're right. It was literally worth 400 to 500 times more than what we were doing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we sold and went on to the next adventure.
And the next, it's interesting you say, you want to know who you're selling this thing to, because you don't want to get caught. And I always learn, I think it was my dad, whether it's in real estate or business or otherwise, like, you don't be greedy. Like, sell your business or your real estate, leave enough cream on the top for the next guy. If you try to time it perfectly, right, you won't. Right, or you might miss the opportunity and you might get caught. Right, holding the bag.
100%.
Right, and so that was kind of a similar philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes business so. It's like such a euphoric drug, because you look at it and you, like we talked earlier, I mean, you can see market opportunities.
Yeah.
And you go, man, we can get in there. If we can get share market and get influence and then get rid of this thing before we get caught. That's how businesses, they used to tell me businesses get bought, not sold. And he'd always say to me, you're never going to sell your business. Someone's going to want to buy your business. And the difference between that nomenclature is me going out there and be like, hey, buy my business. And they're like, I'm not looking for it. It's like a girl, right? Like, or a guy, like you get chosen, you know, they choose you. And so with business, it's like somebody's got to want to buy your business. You know what I mean? They get bought,
Right.
not sold.
Right.
And so you learn these things about business, these nuances as you go through it. And so, yeah, we sold that one. The market consolidated. We had a great opportunity. It wasn't never work again money, but it was a life-changing money for a couple of young 30-year-olds that said, buy homes, buy second homes, set your families up, do your thing.
So I'm getting this theme from you. It's community and it's technology. Like you were like the intersection of those two.
Yeah, everything I've done has been community tech. Everything, community with church and then tech,
Yep.
and then but it was always community tech, and it continued. So we started CrowdHub.
That was the next venture.
Yep. And my whole idea was I love to create. I'm a creator, and so we said, man, what would it be like if we went around and built custom software solutions for companies? We had signed several different clients to some really big things. We did LeaderCast. It was the largest one-day leadership event in the world. We were their platform, but the CEO of it called me up once. So CrowdHub was just a custom community software agency.
Okay.
Donors, consumers.
So for those that don't understand, like what is community software?
So think Facebook. That's a community software.
Okay.
Right. So it's people gathered around conversations, gamification, learning, idea sharing. So think about, we have 1 million donors and we want to get them all connected. We have a bunch of employees, we want to get them connected. We have a bunch of consumers, we want to get them connected. And so we want to own the ecosystem though. We don't want Facebook to own it because they could change an algorithm and all of a sudden we can't talk to the majority of our people. So we would build these custom community software platforms.
So it's a platform people log in, people like-minded or similar interests where they can communicate with each other online.
We had the coolest tech, man. We had all this, machine learning, early stage machine learning where we would onboard you and say, hey, what are you interested in? And so we had all that community software. Probably the coolest deal I ever got was LeaderCast, which was, again, the largest one-day leadership event on the planet. We managed all their community. CEO calls me and he says, hey, if I could get you at the table with the CMO of HP in Tel Aviv, Israel, would you jump on a plane in a month?
You said, heck yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
I'm there.
So, here I am, this kind of young entrepreneur. I jump on a plane, fly to Tel Aviv, and I'm sitting in Old Jaffa and overlooking the Mediterranean, drinking Israeli wine. I wish I could just put a picture up on the screen right now of this place. It was unbelievable. Old Jaffa is where, if anybody has any sort of Bible reference, remember Jonah and the whale? So Old Jaffa.
Hold on. No, honestly, no, I don't remember Jonah and the whale.
Do you really not?
No.
That's amazing. Well,
I'm sorry. I should bone up on Jonah and the whale.
Do you Napoleon? History? Napoleon?
Yeah, I understand Napoleon.
Okay, that's the next one. Old Jaffa in the Bible was where Jonah and the whale was. In history was Napoleon's hospital was in Old Jaffa. They believed there was healing waters in the Mediterranean. So I ended up staying in Napoleon's old hospital, which is now like this really cool Airbnb. I'll show you a picture when we grab,
cigars later.
Yeah. And I'm sitting in Old Jaffa right above my Napoleon's hospital is this restaurant. And we're sitting there with these windows. The windows are like brushed open. The air is coming in off the Mediterranean. We're drinking Israeli wine. I'm sitting next to the CMO of HP, and I'm out there because they want to build a community software for their global employees sales enablement tool. They want to enable their sales reps across the world to idea share, compete, all these things.
Like an internal community.
Yep.
Platform.
And they wanted me to come in and architect it. And so what does our competitive tooling look like? What does our cross collaboration sharing look like? So I was going to come and architect this whole thing. And I'm sitting there and we're having a great time. And somehow mountain biking comes into the picture. He's like, you a mountain biker? I'm like, oh, I love mountain biking. And I do. I love mountain biking.
I used to love mountain biking when I was skinny.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Well, now you're back to skinny. So you have to get
I'm
back.
getting there. Yeah. I'm almost back in the mountain biking shape. I got to dust off my old Specialized stump jumper, I think it was.
You get into my world now. I do. I got a YT electric. So I'm a 45-year-old now. So
you're a cheater.
Yeah, I am a cheater. Happy to be one. So he goes, you want to mountain bike in Israel? And I go, yeah, absolutely, I do. Yeah. He says, all right, I'll pick you up at 6 a.m. and we're going to go mountain bike through. And this guy was we didn't share the same faith, but he said, he heard I was a son of a preacher man. And he said, I'm going to take you through some pretty cool biblical historic sites in mountain bike. So we're mountain biking through it and it was intense, dude. I mean, I'm talking several foot drops. We're doing this thing and I'm like, whoa, we're going. And about halfway through.
Are you like dual suspension? Or?
Yeah. Dual suspension. And I mean, big. I mean, it was intense.
All right.
And we get about halfway through and we pull the bikes over and he goes, hey, man, I like everything about you. I want you to build this tool for us.
That's so
cool.
So
I ended up creating this product called Boost, which is all about boosting sales, boosting impact. To this day, it's the #1 engaged tool in HP Global. They still license it from my company. And it's an incredible sales enablement. So we would build these community tools. And I mean, we did it for the largest radio station. We had 20 million listeners. We did it for this big author. We built an app around the first 5 minutes of your day. It trended #1 in the App Store for 3 days. That was incredible. Millions of people still to this day use that platform. We designed it, created it. So we did that. And then I started. So that was kind of that journey. Yep. And then I started another company, Wisdom Capture.
Wisdom Capture. Let me guess. It has something to do with community and tech.
It does. It does. So I'm running this company, boutique.
And you still run CrowdHub, or you still own it?
Yep. Still own it. So I'm running the company, and I like to create, and I like to get to market. And I was one of our clients. I went into their office, and they were talking about all their values. It was actually, who it was? It was the United Nations. I closed the deal with the United Nations. It was one of the most special ones I ever did. That's a crazy story.
Well, we've got to hear it because I haven't even heard of this one yet. So I don't want to save it for later for the cigars. I want to hear it now.
Okay.
Let's go. The UN?
Life is a series of serendipitous moments, I've found. And you don't really plan them. How we met, I was walking out of the club and your cousin was like, hey, I know you from somewhere. We sit down, start smoking a cigar. He starts sharing more about the visions that you guys had. And next thing you know, here we're friends.
That's crazy.
So one of our clients, again, says, hey, I've got a meeting in New York. I'd like to introduce you to somebody. Are you available in March, whatever? And I go, yeah, I think I can get out there. What is it? And he's like, well, it's a guy by the name of Will Kennedy. He's the head of global partnerships for the United Nations. And I'm going to bring 5 of my clients out, and I'm going to introduce them to Will. So, dude, I get to New York. I walk into the United Nations. I go up so the United Nations has this long half circle building. There's a really big tower. So I'm in the tower where all the offices are. I go up to I don't know, 15, 20 floors up. I'm looking down over all the United Nations buildings, all the flags. I'm staring down at it. There's this green carpet. And this dude walks in. He's probably 6'4", named Will Kennedy. Biggest personality you've ever seen in the world. And he sits there, and 4 of us are lined up in this chair. And I don't even really know why I'm there. I'm just like, I already won.
Because you're at the UN.
That was it, dude. I didn't need anything else. I'm at the UN. I can't believe I'm sitting in the United Nations. And one by one, these guys start sharing about the businesses they're in. And they're all around sustainability, global impact. And I'm like, I don't really know why I'm here. And he gets to me and I'm like, man, we build community technology. We help mobilize people for impact. And we get done and he goes, would you stick around to me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I didn't pitch him on anything.
Yeah.
These guys all pitched him. I do this partnership with the UN. So everybody pitched them but me. I didn't have a pitch. I was just, I don't know why I'm
You're
here.
still trying to figure it out.
I had no pitch. I was just like, I'm just here, man. This is cool. And he's like, can you stick around for a minute? She's sure. And he goes, hey, my wife runs all of the education and mobilization for UNICEF, which is the largest global feeding program in the world. And I'd like to introduce you to her. They're trying to mobilize and educate all of the stakeholders around the world on crisis management and global impact. And I think what you're doing could work. And within 3 or 4 weeks, I'm flying back to New York. I'm meeting with the head of UNICEF. We ended up creating all of the educational content for UNICEF. And it was the same concept. We would listen to these, we would tell their stories and educate on crisis management from mass murders, starvations. And I'd sit in the United Nations and interview all the global leaders from Ethiopia, Uganda, Bangkok, all around global crises and what they're learning. And then we would package their content all behind a private wall that nobody could ever access but the UN.
Right.
This is the stuff
This is what you're doing at Wisdom Capture.
I was Wisdom Capture. We would tell us the stories about what are going on. So Visa, we would sit with Visa, Weight Watchers, Unilever, of course, UNICEF, and we would tell their stories on their values, what they meant, why they mattered, what times they didn't live them out, times they did.
So like a lot of my friends that follow the show,
mm-hmm.
They're in different, peer groups,
sure,
mastermind groups, stuff like that, and it's always about, what's your mission, your vision, your core values, put it on the wall, make sure that your employees understand what you're all about. But you had a whole different take on that.
So I think that like wisdom is what I was in the pursuit of. And wisdom is not just the wins. Wisdom is the learnings. And I'm sure you and I could both muse for hours about all the decisions we made that weren't right.
Right.
And what we learned from it. And so our whole thesis and notion was that we could sit down with the top executives in the world. And I could say, Jim, Rick, Tom, Sally, Visa, for example, one of their mission statements and their values was bold decision-making. And I remember sitting across from the CEO of Visa and said, tell me about a time you didn't make a bold decision. Fear, doubt, hesitation. And what was the impact of that? I remember I was sitting with Unilever, which if folks don't know who Unilever is, it's actually the largest product company in the world.
Right.
Every shampoo, every soap, every detergent you use, Unilever owns. And one of the guys, I started asking this guy, I'm like, tell me about a time that one of yours was like transparency was one of theirs. And I said to him, I was in New York at the Unilever headquarters. And I said, actually, it's probably right over the Hudson in Jersey. And I'm with him and he goes, probably the biggest time I wasn't transparent I should have been was when I hid my alcoholism. And then I was losing my family. And he goes into this whole thing and starts crying.
Holy
and I'm
cow.
like.
And you're capturing this on video.
And this is not, well, in my mind, this is not what,
it's not what you were trying to do.
Not a senior executive of Unilever. So we get done and I go, hey, we don't need to edit that and bring that up on. He goes, it's our value.
Wow.
This is a value. Why would we not be transparent? I just told you those were some of the moments we would have telling these stories. And
so the whole idea was you package up these stories.
We put them
around core values for corporations and make them available to the employees.
So we made it all part of course it was evergreen so they could use it whenever they wanted, but a big part was onboarding. So a new employee would come on, instead of handing them a piece of paper that says, here's our 7 values, they would say, go click on our, Visa Wisdom, Weight Watcher Wisdom.
Yep.
And they would click on it and they could click on a value and all these stories would pop up and we would make them all 3 to 5 minutes.
Yep.
And
they would watch them and it would give them a good sense of what that company was all about.
Yeah. But but from their executives to the people they followed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's incredible.
And we could keep reoccurring clients because executives move and leave. Right. So they're like, hey, we got a new CEO. We got a new come back in.
We got more stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Wisdom Capture.
Wisdom Capture. So I sold that company.
You sold it.
Yep. And actually I sold it to first client we ever got one of the young men that was on board with us, my head of film brought him to carry the bags and set the cameras up.
Okay.
And he was one of the most interesting young men I'd met. And of course, this is as we get older,
Young men, I know.
And he was just a spectacular. He actually owned a business in Paraguay. The economy changed, came back. He actually bought the company from me. Actually, funny enough, his final payment to me is due in January. Yeah. And I'm just so happy for him. I mean, it was, to me, the money wasn't even honestly, it didn't even really impact my life, but I made him pay because I believe in,
right.
He would never appreciate it if he didn't, but he bought it out, and, I'm really happy for him.
So you're rocking and rolling. You built these 3 businesses, right? And then COVID hits, right? So walk me through that, because I'm thinking here's a tech entrepreneur, and then COVID hits. That couldn't have been good.
Well, it's funny when it hit for all of us, we thought, we're all going to start like crop sharing and like what is about to happen.
We're going to the barter system.
Yeah. I mean, I know we went and grabbed a ton of cash and shoved it in boots and bought a bunch of wine. And we're like, well, this is
bourbon.
Yeah.
Don't forget the bourbon.
Exactly. Like, this is going to be interesting. Very quickly we realized our companies were very safe. I had just completed a TEDx talk in Tyson's DC, which is pretty much the most elite place to do it. Maybe somewhere in Manhattan would be better, but this was like top place. So I did a TEDx talk. I'm running CrowdHub. I'm running Wisdom Capture. Our clients start saying, there was no threat to the businesses. We need to double down on technology. We need to double down on film because we can't physically be together.
Right.
So all of a sudden I'm like, oh man,
so COVID kind of played into your businesses.
I'm like, we're set. And then they started asking something new. They said, would you build virtual technology? Now, believe it or not, 5 years ago, we were using this thing called Skype. And every now and again, you would jump on video with somebody.
Right.
I would still say 85 to 90% of my business interactions were on phone. They weren't film or video. And
right.
So they started saying, hey, can you get into virtual technology? And
so virtual meaning what?
Think Zoom.
Okay.
Think Zoom. But Zoom was very binary. It was very one-to-one. And a lot of our clients were like, hey, I need to do courses, education. I need to do
like one-to-many
smart pairing. I need to do breakout rooms.
Okay.
Zoom wasn't doing that stuff yet. And certainly Zoom wasn't doing, onboarding education. Hey, we need to onboard 100 employees, but they need to go through these steps.
Right.
But we need to virtually connect them all. So all of a sudden
so for some companies, maybe Zoom might have been a component of that process, but you were thinking, well, maybe I can build the whole process.
That's exactly right. So a lot of companies were saying, hey, we're going to Zoom you in on this screen essentially, and then you're going to do the education with this platform. And our clients were like, well, could you just have I called it a single destination platform. So fun story. I'll try to make this quick.
Yep.
I know time's ticking, but
it's okay. We're learning a lot and having fun.
All right.
And drinking tequila.
And fantastic tequila.
What are we drinking, by the way?
It is so stinking good.
Here's our Vaulted Views commercial for, this is the first time I've ever had this tequila.
It's so good.
Senor Artesano or Artesano.
It is so good. I don't know.
It's fantastic.
And the bottle's beautiful too.
It is a nice bottle. It's not quite as nice as some of my Clase Azul bottles, but it's pretty. Yeah, it's nice. But the tequila is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, usually we drink bourbon in the vault, Josh. So maybe we'll bring you back for another episode and we can indulge in some bourbon.
Always around.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, our clients start asking us for virtual tech.
Yep.
And we don't know what that even means. I mean, we do, like I just described. Well, I guess they want Zoom. Can we build Zoom? I call my CTO. I'm like, hey man, can you do this? And he's like, well, let me find out. Calls me back. He's like, I think we can partner here. We can do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I would even say at that stage of my life, Ray, I was kind of like a let's party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're on easy, I don't want to say easy street, but you got it all figured out. You got 3 things you're involved in.
It's house money.
Yeah. Things are good. Wife's happy. Kids are good.
I did a TEDx talk. one of the guys in the audience was the head of the Speakers Bureau for the U.S. State Department. He comes up to me afterwards and he's like, hey, really love your talk. Would you be an ambassador, global ambassador for entrepreneurship for the State Department? So next thing you know, I'm like, anytime I'm in country, they'd always call it in country. If you're in country, we'll connect you to...
Because you're a global traveler.
I'm a global citizen. Yeah. So they're like, hey, if you're in country, we'll connect you with ambassadors, head of schools. We want you to speak on behalf of entrepreneurship in America. So I'm feeling honestly, I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Yeah,
I got CrowdHub, I got Wisdom Capture.
You're killing it, bro. You're killing it.
I'm mountain biking every day at 3 o'clock.
Even though the world's falling apart, COVID's happening, but your businesses are flourishing.
I'm feeling pretty good.
And then you have this idea about integrating this technology, this community technology, and so you're calling it virtual.
Yeah, virtual. So here's the through line that I think anybody listening to that owns a business or has any influence in a business could kind of double tap on. Your customers are gonna, and Steve Jobs he would say tell the customers what they want, but I'll just talk about being customer centered. They will, if you listen, they're gonna tell you where the puck's going,
right? And
you skate to it. And so I didn't have an idea. Our customers said, we don't want multiple platforms. Will you build virtual? But I heard them and I'm like, hey, it's house money.
Right.
We already have companies that are running. Let's do it. So this is early March 2020.
Yeah. It's just all happening.
Things are just shutting down. You know, Tom Hanks just got COVID. It's like the world's like, what just happened? And we said, let's do it. And so we jumped in, we start framing things together. And I knew a guy who was a portfolio executive at Insight Partners, which is the largest software-only VC, $20 billion under management. His name was Colin Britton. And I called him up and I said, and I'd never raised capital before.
Other than the $100,000 for the church.
You're right. Yep. Right.
So the other businesses were self-built.
It's all self-funded.
Self-funded.
Yep.
Self-funded. So here you are. You're like, I just raised, it's been years since I raised any money. I'm going to call this guy Colin.
Yeah, so I'm not a serial raiser. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I love building healthy businesses that have great margins. That I've always felt this way: prove something, invest. Prove something, invest.
Yeah.
Don't bet on black and hope. And so I've always felt like if your idea doesn't attract talent, and your idea doesn't attract customers, you probably don't have the right idea.
Right.
And so that was always my mentality, And so, but this one was too complex. The software was going to be too complex.
Yeah, you need a significant amount of capital to pull this one off.
This was big boy stuff. So it was like, all right, here we go. So I call up Colin and he goes, I go, man, we're trying to raise money. And he goes, hey, it's his typical, British, nobody gives a fuck about anything until you've done $1 million in bookings. Yeah. Bookings. They always call it bookings. And I'm like,
it was ARR.
Right. So that's what it would be, right? Because annual recurring revenue, but they would call bookings. They don't care until you've done booking. So I'm like, well, we haven't done any yet, but our customers have asked for it. So he goes, call me when you've done $1 million in bookings. And so we had been building through the summer. And that's when we were like, man, if we're going to get to market and scale and everything else, we're going to need capital. So this was September. I called him, maybe August. I called him. It was August. And within 30 days, no, August, September, 90 days, we'd done $1 million in bookings in 90 days of ARR. Yep. Which was a real business. If you've done $1 million in software in ARR.
Yeah, the first hurdle's $1 million ARR.
Yep.
The next one's 5 million. And then the next one's 10. And then you're kind of.
Now you're
legit.
You're going to get a $100 million exit.
Right.
And so I called him up. I said, hey man, I got $1 million in ARR. And he goes, all right, I'm going to introduce you to my boss. His name's Walter Scott. Walter Scott is the #1 portfolio executive for Insight Partners. He's had 6 exits. He's worth about 700 million, and he uniquely and strategically invests with the co-founder of Insight Partners, Jerry Murdoch, who's a multiple billionaire. And he's like, I've never met Jerry, but I'm going to get you introduced to Walter. So I jump on with Walter. Walter is this Bostonian, Rhode Island guy, always has a chew in his mouth. It's worth double what Justin Bieber's worth. And he's like, he always says, buddy, what are you doing? So I start telling him what I'm doing. He goes, I like you. So, cause we're going, we're just doing, I like you. Give me 20 minutes. Now this is things are going, middle of COVID, things are going crazy. 20 minutes later, Jerry Murdoch wants to meet you. Well, this guy Colin, I've never met Jerry Murdoch. Jerry Murdoch's like the Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the screen.
Right.
Nobody meets
Jerry.
No. Richard Branson officiated his wedding. He lives on Red Mountain in Aspen. He's an extreme skier. Anybody can Google him. Look him up. Look up Jerry Murdoch. He's an extreme skier at 68 years old, hella skier at 68 years old. He's like the guy that make movies about this guy.
Okay. I'm going to track Jerry down.
You should check him out. Incredible.
I'm going to check him down.
And
I'm going to be in Vail in a couple weeks.
Okay. So he's an incredible.
I don't know how far is Vail to Aspen?
It's probably 45 minutes an hour,
Yeah, it's not too bad.
No.
Unless it's snowing.
Yeah, incredible guy. So I get on with him, and he is the most charming. He gets on. Josh, great to meet you. Congratulations. Blah, blah, blah. We're all glad handing each other. And he goes, so what kind of valuation you looking for? And now they called it an extremely frothy market, which means everything was overpriced. Everything. During COVID.
Even during COVID.
Yeah. So I said, I'm looking for a 24 post. So for those that don't know, 24 post basically means my revenue, your investment, my valuation. So basically I'm saying if we're $1 million and you give me 3 million, so we have 4 million, my company's worth 24 million. Stupid valuation.
Right.
He says, and pardon some of the language, but he's like,
Let me guess, there's an F-bomb coming.
Yeah, oh yeah. He goes, who the fuck do you think you are? Just as like all the congenial, everything's great.
This is the Wizard of Oz. Behind this scenes that no one gets to meet.
Fuck
you already pissed them off.
And he hangs up completely out. He's gone. And Walter starts dying laughing. He's hitting his chair. Oh, you really screwed this one up, buddy. My buddy, my actual buddy, Colin, his jaw drops. Like his whole world just ended because he brought me in. He's never met this guy. I've just radically offended this guy with what I felt like my company was worth. And I go, I am so sorry, Colin. I'm so sorry. Like I may have just ruined your life. And we all hang up on the Zoom. And I remember I went for a walk because I just had to, I was like pretty stressed out. Felt horrible. Not for me. I'm like, who cares? And within less than 30 minutes, I get an email from Jerry. Are we doing this deal or not?
No way.
Swear to you. And we jump back on 15 minutes later. We agreed to an 18 million post and they became our seed round. And we landed a big event-based deal, and we went from 0 to 14 million in revenue in 12 months. Went from 0 employees to 133 employees in a year. But it just as quick as we went up.
Yeah. So before you get there, so and again, this is like it's a combo of like Zoom and courses and
community forums, certifications,
all on one platform, all based on the theme that it's COVID. We're in this virtual world now.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And you were telling me a story. You were talking to one of your customers. You had a huge event. What was the epiphany?
So we've raised 16 million, and I got 133 employees within 12 months.
Yep. Business is going gangbusters, right?
Yeah, but you know that little still small voice in your own gut that you go, my dad used to always say to me, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I grew up hearing that.
Yep.
I think it was my mom.
Yeah. And it's true. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And I was in this moment where I'm like, this is like a movie, like, I mean, who takes a company from 0 to 14 million in 12 months, has 133 employees. I don't even know these people. And we just got done. I mean, we hosted, politics aside, we hosted the World Health Organization during the first 6 months of COVID. So before anybody had an opinion. And Fauci's on there, Jamie Foxx, Matthew McConaughey. This product's 6 months old. I don't even know if it's going to work.
That's crazy.
And the world's trying to educate each other on whatever the heck's sweeping the world. And we get done, not with that one, but with a different one. And one of my customers says to me, hey, we want a meeting with you after the event. And they had tens of thousands of people all over the world on our product. I go, yeah, how we doing? Seamless, amazing, credible thing. we hope we never have to use you again.
Oh, they had a successful event and they they just subtly go, it was so great, Josh. We just really hope we never have to use you again.
They said it in a way that was so sincere.
Right.
It was
because
scary.
it was COVID, right? Like,
but I mean, sincere about never
there.
using you again. Sincere, like, I mean, I'm dead serious.
Well, we don't want to do this virtual.
I don't want to
thing.
be virtual.
We want to get back to like human interactions, not like through screens, right? That's what they were really saying.
And they're like,
it wasn't personal. It wasn't about your business.
They loved our team. They loved our culture. They loved our product, and they weren't even being mean. They almost said it like, just more like everybody wanted to get back to a normal life. It wasn't personal. They didn't.
That's the reason why we're in this vault.
Yep.
You know, I had a decision to make too.
Yeah.
You know, do we shrink and go more virtual?
Yep.
Or do we create an unbelievable experience for my people and my clients that attracts them back to the office?
Yeah. Right.
So I created a clubhouse for my people.
Yeah. It's incredible.
The vault's just one room.
It's incredible.
Right? So if you ever want to check it out,
please,
hit me up. Come over here. Golf simulator, TV studio, espresso machine, the whole bit. Right. So, but they were saying, we want our people back.
And so I thought to myself, we're screwed. You know, my billionaire investors are going, how are you going to get to 32 million next year? And I'm like, how am I going to get to 3 million next year? Like, whoa. I mean, that was what was in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. I've got, and we're paying developers, you know, we're paying some of our guys, you know, $300,000-$400,000 grand. I mean, it's
so in your gut, you got this decision to make.
So I call them up,
right? Like,
I call them up.
You're going through some internal struggle here.
This is an inflection moment. This is the oh shit moment. This is not good moment. And I call them up and I go, hey, Jerry and Walt, I go, we need to pivot. This space is going to evaporate. Now, let me just give you some context. The first to market was a company called Hopin out of the UK. They raised $1 billion. $1
billion.
$500 million from
with a B.
Half a B from $500 million from LinkedIn,
Greylock,
and then other obviously strategics. And that's who we're competing. We raised 16 million. They raised $1 billion. I go to my investors and I go, virtual is going to die. It's going to commoditize. It's going to streamline. This thing's going to be toast. And they go, no, double down, invest more, double down.
So they wanted you to go raise more capital,
double down on it. And Hopin at this time was raising the $1 billion. So they're doubling down on it. And we were talking about this earlier, and everybody listening knows this. Your gut is rarely wrong. Your ego's wrong. Your insecurity's wrong. Your ambition's wrong. Those things get wrong all the time. All the time. Gut is rarely wrong. And my ambition, my ego, my insecurity were all screaming, whatever a billionaire tells you to do, you just do. And I'm not talking about like a guy worth 10, 100, 500. I'm talking about a dude with multiple billions of dollars. First investor with Elon in several products. Like, I mean, you got to look this guy up. But he was wrong. He wasn't in the business. He didn't know. And I went to our team and I said, guys, we cannot double down on this. I told them that I'm not going to double down on it. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot back to what I know, which is community software. And I know the space is legacy and tired. I know we can bring a new product into it and we can find a strategic to buy us. And they were like, we think you should double down, but you're the CEO, do what you want to do. And I remember just like that same gut also wanted to vomit because you're like, well, what if they're right and you're wrong?
But that's what makes you CEO. It makes you the entrepreneur. I mean, you know, being one myself, you know, I've had to make a few pivots over the years. Wow. As you know, we've had conversations and it's not easy, but you know what your people, I don't have investors, but your people expect you to make those tough decisions.
Yeah. And trust you too.
Right? They trust you and expect you. And in your case, your investors expect you too, and they respected you.
They did.
For doing that, you know, to their kudos, I think it worked out okay.
So it's funny, when I made the pivot, so to kind of package that story up, hop in, raised $1 billion, sold 10 months before we sold for 18 million.
Whoa, $1 billion down to 18 million. Yeah, I mean, I'm a financial guy.
That's not a great ROI.
That's a terrible ROI.
So they lost almost $1 billion.
Okay.
And
how much did you lose?
So we didn't lose. We made money, millions, as a matter of fact. And it's funny, our investors, when I told them I was pivoting, they made this joke. They said, if you get half our money back, you're going to be somewhere between a rock star or Jesus Christ and a rock star.
How apropos is that?
Yeah, right.
Considering you're the son of a preacher man.
Right. And a preacher man myself. And so.
And a preacher man. Yeah. So, let's get into that too.
So anyway, ended up selling, had a great situation. And that was in May of this year we sold.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All the investor money back, extra. It was great. And we got carved out. It was awesome.
So I want to cover two more things with you.
Yep.
I mean, what an incredible journey from literally 23-year-old raising 100K with one person showing up to building online communities of employees with millions of people to raising money, to going through COVID and all that stuff. And I know you've learned a ton along the way in business, so much that you've created a framework.
Yeah.
Right. A framework for entrepreneurs that want to obsess around, being successful. Right. So help us understand your framework. It's called Obsess.
It's called Obsess. So one of the things I learned, and I know you, as leaders and business owners, we obsess about future-proofing our business.
Yep.
Look, we want to be here for the next generation. We want this building to be filled with next generation planners. We want this building to impact millions of people's lives. We don't want this to end with you. So we obsess about future-proofing our business. But the problem is we're so inundated with the business, HR, financials, sales, all the things that it's so often difficult to get out in front of the business and go, where are we going? And so back to the days of CrowdHub, Wisdom Capture, I would always go in and I would take this framework and say, let's obsess, but with a framework. Let's not obsess with chaos. And so we would build this concept out, observe, what are our opportunities in the business? And so this is
someone's kind of do like a SWOT analysis or something.
Yeah. So I started a company called Zenith Labs, and it's a strategic firm that sits down with companies and says, there's a future for your business, but let's obsess with the framework. So let's observe what's our market opportunity. There's some market opportunity here that we know that there's. Let's benchmark it.
Yep.
Because
there's a baseline.
Mm-hmm. And so what is possible, what's not, because we always overshoot or undershoot. So what is that? Let's create a strategic go-to-market plan. This is something that most people don't really understand how to do, is how do we take idea to market? Yep. Let's begin to get a good execution plan because we want to get this to market. So am I getting this right? O-B-S-E.
Yeah. You get two S's.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And then let's get to scale. This is a big thing I believe in because I did this for a long time. I always call this adoption to champion. Adoption to champion. I want to get people to adopt what we believe and preach and say, and then I want them to champion it. I want them to become our advocates. And so that's the big part of scale, and then sustain. And so what we ended up doing was we have this 18-month playbook that we have that we come in and say, every business has an opportunity to obsess with pure brain fog and fear and chaos or a framework. And we just think it's better to do with a framework. And so we sit down and we work with this process with companies, and we ended up creating, new revenue, new opportunities, go-to-market plans, adopters to champions. And then let's make sure this thing isn't just here for 36 months.
Right. Yeah. Because it's all about getting to the end, which is sustaining.
That's right.
Right. You want to sustain the growth. You do that. What'd you say? From creating champions.
Adoption's a champion, man. Yep. I want you to adopt the way I think. And then I want you to champion the way I think. Right. Because that's when you see, just do it. I mean, that's the champion. It's when they become the advocates, when they are just, evangelize, and, those are brands that sustain,
so hard to do as a business owner to create that adoption to champion.
We've been,
and I bet it has something to do with community too.
Yeah, it does though. It does, and it's that tribal mentality that it's us against the world. It's I want to be part of this. There's something so sticky. We've talked about this: skimmers, swimmers, scuba divers. Like, how do I get a little bit of your time, a little bit more of your time, a lot of your time? It's building frameworks that say, it's also brands that you want to associate with.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I want to associate with that. Like who's ever worn Nike and been embarrassed? Who's ever worn Nike and been embarrassed?
If I could fit into Nike, I might be able to fit into it now, but Nike, I always tend to be on the,
I mean? It's
skinnier
like,
side of things.
But you know what I mean? Like who's wearing like Viore? You're proud to rep the brand.
Right. I get you.
And so that's
picking
community.
up what you're putting down.
That's community. And so you want to build a brand where people are like, I'm proud to be associated with it. So,
and that's what the obsessive framework results in 100%. For businesses. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so, let's tie it back. We started this off with talking about how you're the son of a preacher man. Yeah. I had this opportunity. You shared me this link. And you preach from time to time.
I do.
Right?
Yeah.
At the Church of Rancho Bernardo.
That's right. Yeah, once a month.
Right? Once a month, which is amazing. I'm sure anyone who's watching this podcast couldn't even guess that this guy can talk on stage, especially having done the TED Talk and,
I've done it for
all these podcasts and everything. And so, but this video clip really captivated me. I mean, moved me, honestly. And, it's because, obviously I'm real close with my father.
Yeah.
You clearly are too.
Yeah.
You talk about, some of the teachings that he has helped you, as a young person, around money. I think you called it the 7 truths about financial stewardship.
That's right.
That your dad taught you. And so let's just run through, I'll help you with them. I wrote them down. I took some notes because I'm going to share it with my son. Cause it's really special. And I think the audience will get a lot from this. So, you start off with the 10-10-80 plan, right? So there's seven things that we want to share. So
I looked back at my life and I was like, what are the things my dad taught me about managing a buck and being a steward and being a generous man? And I just wrote them down and then I preached on them. Yep. And so, 10-10-80. My dad would always say, pay God, or if that's not your thing, give back, donate, whatever your kind of thing is.
Yep.
Give back to something you believe in, pay God, pay yourself, pay others. And so he'd always say, give money away, save money, and live on the rest. And man, I did that with every dollar I ever made. I mean, I would go speak at places. I would go make $500.
Yep.
And I'd always, in fact, I kind of flipped a lot of it, with extra money I made. I always gave my wife 10%. I took 10% and we saved 80. But I believe that was the first thing he taught me.
Yep.
Pay others, but give to others.
Yep.
Pay yourself and then live on the rest. That was the first thing he taught me.
That reminds me back in the day when I was playing blackjack in college with my wife, who I later married.
That's awesome.
It was like we're playing blackjack. I'd take you go from like the red chips, the $5 chips, and you get to the $25 chips. And the $25 chips, which are green, go to the black chips, $100. Yep. I get to that $100 chip and I go, here you go, honey.
Take it off the table.
Take it right off the table. Put it in your purse. And then at the end of the day, I'd be broke because I'd lose everything that was on the table.
Yep.
And she'd be like, look at all the money I've got in my purse.
Man, I'll tell you, as a father of 2 boys, there's a lot of opportunities through my career on, we've sold 3 companies now. And I've sold real estate. I've had different things. I could have made a lot of financial decisions to change my lifestyle. But for me, I ended up just not doing that. And now I have a ton of autonomy so great principle.
Yeah. Did I really just take a tithing principle and turn it into a gambling analogy? That's terrible of me. That's got to be the tequila talking.
But it's actually a great analogy though.
So number 2, so being a CPA, this actually was my favorite. I probably should say this the last, but it was number 2 on your list, which is, what do you want to be blessed on? And you talk about the gross, basically versus the net, pre-tax versus post-tax. So do you want to be blessed on what, the gross or the net?
So think about stewardship in a sense of like, and you could think about these principles in life. Do you want to be blessed on the maximum or the minimum? And so growing up, I'd always say, Dad, do you have to give money away? And how much do you have to give away? And, in the church world, they would say, a tithe, 10%. So, well, do I give that away on like pre-tax or post-tax?
Yeah. How about top or after?
And he would say, well, how much do you want to be blessed? Do you want to be blessed on the pre or the post? And we'd always say, well, I want to be blessed on the pre, but give on the post, like,
what do we all?
So I think when it comes time to having a generous spirit, you always want to ask yourself the question, what do you want to be blessed on?
Yeah.
Because you're going to be blessed as much as you give in life. I don't mean to preach here, but like as much love and generosity as you give to your wife and your kids and your friends, that's going to return back to you.
Right. I've always believed that.
Yeah. So it just depends on how much you want to be blessed on.
Yeah. So it's just, don't focus on gross or net or whatever. Just do what you can do and be happy for it.
That's right.
Take care of the people around you.
Yep.
That's special. So the third one, you can't outgive God. Let's talk about that.
I think it's important and I'll just, again, I want to try to generalize this because I know not everybody listens going to share the exact same, faith or belief, but I'll say this, like, you will not reach a ceiling on generosity. You're not going to all of a sudden go, I gave too much, because there's some law, there's some principle that governs the world, agnostic of religion, agnostic of belief, that there's generosity is this flywheel that every time you pick up a check, every time you open a door, you just can't outgive generosity.
Right.
And so I would just encourage people listening to this that what is to the measure you use it, it'll be measured back to you.
So does that mean when you get to the automatic tipping now, and it used to be like 15%, now like right in the middle, it was like 10, 15, 20, and 15 was in the middle. Now it's like 15, 20, 25.
It's like now they're like, give me 40% at Starbucks and they didn't do anything.
So you got to go to you got to go to the right. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
No, yeah.
You actually on the outgive God thing on your YouTube link you sent me, you talked about standards.
Yeah.
Right? Like not lowering your standards based on your income. Like I love that story.
There's a friend of mine named John Trumbull, and freshman year of high school, he walked in and he was this was back in the day, but khakis, polo shirt, super clean. We were all dressed like hoodlums. And I remember we all thought John was had such a high standard the way he showed up. We all changed our clothes. We all started wearing polo shirts and khakis. And one day John invited me to his home, and I was sure that it was like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air house. I mean, it had to be, because what freshman dresses like this? And it was a modest 1,200 square foot home in Denver. And I remember even in that time knowing that just because you don't have a high income doesn't mean you have to have a low standard. And I think that the key is whatever we have, man, let's have a high standard on everything based on the way we show up in the world.
I love that. Just maintain your high standard regardless of what you have.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's see. That was number 3, right? Yeah. Number 4, if you don't give when you have a little, you won't give when you have a lot.
Oh man, that was one of the toughest ones he ever taught me, because I told the story in the talk of working at Famous Footwear and having no money.
Famous Footwear.
That was my first job, dude.
I remember that place in the strip malls.
Yep. And I remember telling my dad, someday when I have money, I'm going to be generous. And this is just a true point, man. And you could ask anybody on the planet. If you can't give when you have a little, you can't give when you have a lot.
Yep. And
the truth of the matter is like, we've got to be people that just decide that generosity is a value and a behavior, and not a tax bracket location, Yeah. So and again, this is true in everything. I could just start preaching, but it's like, sometimes we don't have a lot to give in our marriages, our kids, our colleagues. But if you can give, even if you have a little, again, generosity is a flywheel.
Right.
It returns. It just does.
And number 5 was it's my mower.
So
talking about it all starting with me.
That's right. So my dad would loan us his mower growing up, and we would go out and mow yards. And then the first day ever, we had done 10 yards and got $100. And we picked us up and he says, you owe me $10. So for what? He goes, it's my mower. It's my mower. It's my gas. And again, generosity starts with the fact that you've been given something. Somebody gave you a job. Somebody gave you a promotion. Somebody gave you an opportunity. Right. And it didn't start with you. And in order to be a generous person, you have to realize there was something that started before you.
Somebody made sacrifices long before you came
You're on
around.
somebody's shoulders.
Yep.
And if you think you are the originator, you will never really be a generous giver.
Number 6, God doesn't need your money.
So I think this is again true the world doesn't need you to be generous, because guess what? There's something in this world that draws greatness from other people. And it's either going to be you or someone else. And somebody else is going to get the blessing if you don't. And there's a biblical principle I talk about, and God talks about, he says, even if I needed something, I wouldn't tell you. The Bible says that.
Yeah, I think you said in your YouTube video, God would say, if I was hungry, I wouldn't tell you, for the world is mine.
It's mine.
Right?
I have it all anyway.
I already have it all.
And I'll just say this, man, if you don't breathe life into somebody else will, and you'll miss the blessing. But this world's going to keep turning without you.
Right.
I'd rather be part of.
Be part of the movement, be part of
Yes.
the goodness.
Yes.
Right. And then the last one, blessed to be a blessing.
Man, it's what we're doing right now. Neither one of us are getting paid to sit here right now.
Yeah, we're having fun.
We're sitting here because
sharing stories, educating.
Yeah, we're sitting here because you and your father, your cousin, your team, your family have worked so hard to help people save for retirement, help people have a story. I'm here. We are blessed. So let's go be a blessing.
Right.
Let's sit here for an hour and be a blessing to somebody else. 70 minutes.
70 minutes. You saw the clock, you cheater.
Yeah. Let's sit here and bless somebody, because that's why we've been blessed.
Exactly right.
So those are the things my dad taught me growing up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm definitely blessed. My mom, my dad, my family, and I'm certainly blessed for having met you, Josh.
Oh man, I feel the same way, brother.
And thank you so much for doing the show. I mean, this has been one of my favorite, episodes of Vaulted Views, and I hope we could do another one.
I would love to. I think that there's a world out there. I always say this: the world is waiting. It's just waiting. It's waiting for men and women that stand up and say, "I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to be an impact person. I'm going to go." And I think we have that synergy.
Yes, sir.
So, man, we're just getting started.
We're just getting started, folks. Well, thank you for tuning in to Vaulted Views. Again, we'll see you next time. Josh.
What a pleasure. Hotzenpiller.
Sorry, the tequila is there.
It's all good, yeah.
Let's go grab a cigar. What do you think?
I'm in.
All right, we're going to do it. We'll see you guys next time on Vaulted Views.